is going to do the things that it will be doing. Coming up on the show, in this first hour, we're going to talk about what is the biggest thing that distracts you at work. Let me know. Feel free to be anonymous, because on social media, when I asked already, people are like, Relebogile, some of our bosses are here. We can't speak freely. Feel free to be anonymous. But what are the biggest things that distract you at work from actually getting your job done? What are those things? Movies and what to stream afterwards with Phil Mpela, entertainment commentator. Our travel feature, we're going to talk to Gabby Brondani about exploring the world's green wonders. The second hour of the show, our parenting and parents feature. Oh, this is a good one. You must tune in for it. We're going to be speaking to a clinical psychologist, David Consalves, about the myth of a good childhood, where some people say, oh, I had a good childhood, until you really get to unpack what their childhood was like and realize, was it actually a good childhood? And then we wrap up with Dr. Chris Smith, the naked scientist. Get in touch with us, 011 883 0702, SMS us 31702, tweet at Relebogile M, at Radio 702, using the hashtag 702 afternoons, and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabotja
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
A very, very simple question. What are the distractions at your job that keep you from getting your work done? I've shared before when we were talking about open plan office spaces and how they contribute not just to people getting sick, but productivity. And if it works. But now I'm like, there are so many distractions at work. There really are. Let me start with one of them, which I saw as a meme, where somebody says Microsoft Teams notifications need to be like blocked permanently, because it is notifications galore and non-stop. Another person was like, I know we speak about meetings, but how can a person get work done when they are pulled into 7-8 meetings in a day? So maybe the distractions for you are things like meetings. Maybe it is colleagues. Maybe it is the open plan nature of where you are working. But there's so many ways that you are able to get distracted at your job and your place of work that completely stop you from being productive. It could also just be you choosing to regularly open TikTok and watch videos, or logging on to social media. Or maybe you're a person who naturally is easily distracted and can share with us what it is you do to remain focused and to get your work done. Have you put things in place to help you not get distracted? And I want to hear from you on this on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Some of the messages that have already been shared with us on X. One person says working from home is a distraction for them, right? Two sides of the same coin. Some people hate working from the office because people are going to talk to them. Others don't like working from home. And again, there are people who work from homes where there is no separate space, or there are people who live at home that aren't going to work, that make it difficult for you to focus. Sipiwo says, my phone is my biggest distraction. Bebe on X says, data. When there's a lot of data available, I will definitely delve deeper into it than I need to. I will go into a data rabbit hole until it's 5 to my deadline. And I agree with that. Do you recall the time when we did not have access to data like we did? And I remember when I'd get into a Wi-Fi space, you'd be like, oh my gosh, can I get the Wi-Fi password? And then those 2 hours you are getting and downloading things to watch. But now, everywhere you go, it is so accessible, getting data, getting Wi-Fi. Andromeda says, the cleaning lady. Every company I've worked for that has had a cleaning lady who is always angry as if she was forced to join the company, you so much as drop a droplet of water on the kitchen floor and bingo, we are in Gaza. That is so dramatic. That is so dramatic. I mean, I haven't had experiences like that before. And I guess our setup here at Prime Media and the nature of the work is a little bit different because you can't have a cleaning lady while we are on air, but there is a system in place. Steve Manamela says, coffee breaks. My office is next to the kitchen and it's glass, so I see everyone getting into the kitchen. Requests from my manager to do urgent stuff, which are not really urgent. I've already got a solution for you about the thing about urgent stuff, which I heard about. And what it was is if you already are working on something urgent and then your boss says, I need this urgently, you need to say to them, no problem, boss. Currently on my plate is this urgent thing and this urgent thing. Which one should I prioritize right now so that I can make this deadline? So throw it back at them. And I say this at the same time, having dealt with that with my own team members, where I say, I urgently need this. And then they'll say, okay, do you need me to drop this to tend to this? Or can this wait so that I can finish this other urgent thing that you had asked for? Another message says, some employees on the floor asking me to assist without logged tickets, and now I can't account for my time. Is that what happens with IT? Guys, I think we might be guilty of that. Abel, are we guilty of not logging tickets? Well, I mean, ours is maybe a little bit emergency because we do have a ticketing system. But if we need to go on air in 5 minutes, we're not logging tickets. We're like, yeah, there's an issue. Come through right away. But that's such a valid one. I never thought of that. Shadrach says the cell phone is such a major, major distraction for me. Dineo on the WhatsApp line shares, good morning. I get distracted by my phone. I'm constantly checking my phone. And that is one that has come through. Malacha says there's an airhead who used to irritate me at work and still does. How? Guys, ninjani kodwa that batukidi airhead. Hi Relebogile, my manager passing down her work onto me. Hi Kona is what that one says. Relebogile, you once shared a story where you were distracted from doing your job after you ate a peanut butter. Did you take legal action against the manufacturer of that butter? Is that my story? Peanut butter. I was distracted from doing my job. Oh, I think I know what you're referencing, and I cannot recall. But what happened was we had our food feature on the show. And what usually happens before the show is that we taste. I tasted a dish that contained cashew nuts, which I'm highly allergic to. So I ended up being rushed to the emergency room, and no action was taken because there was a clear miscommunication. The chefs that come really do their absolute best to be able to accommodate my allergies, for example. But within the first spoon, and I knew something was going wrong. And I immediately was like, this is a red alert. And, spent a day or two in hospital. I think it was 2 nights in hospital getting stabilized. But yes, I guess food allergies do distract you from work. Kabazela came in and stood in for me with maybe 3 minutes before going on air, but it happens. There was no need to take legal action. I mean, a small business coming here and there being miscommunication, we really would not do such a thing. Esther says, Relebogile, micromanagers and work bullies are the ones that are distracting. You can't even get anything done. That is coming through from Esther. We take your calls on 011 8830702 in the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
702 delivers
on the matters that matter to you.
Hi, my name is Kenosi from Cosmos City. I love Talk Radio 702 because they are so informative. And everything that comes is very fresh, and we know exactly that is very legit.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
so we can deliver more on what matters to you.
702 listens.
Let's walk the talk.
The Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra returns for the second week of the Winter Symphony season on Thursday, the 12th of June, under the baton of conductor Koji Kawamoto. Internationally acclaimed pianist Andrei Gugnin takes the spotlight in Rachmaninoff's dazzling Piano Concerto No. 1. The season concerts feature different and exciting programs each Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. until the 26th of June at the Linda Auditorium. Tickets available through Quicket.
After school snacks, a bag of chips or maybe some biscuits, instant noodles for lunch. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels now. Sign the petition on healer.org. HEALA.org.
Timber, have you filed your business tax return?
Joe. With My Way Business Insurance, I get My Business Assist, which gives me loads of benefits. They assist in filing my taxes, so no long queues. Plus, I get tender notifications, marketing services, and more to help me elevate my hustle.
They do what?
Yeah, bo. Thanks to My Way, now I have time to focus on the real deal, which is growing my business.
Move to My Way Business Insurance today and get covered to do business your way. Visit myway.co.za for a quote. My Business Assist is a value-added product. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
Every small business owner knows that you got to dream big to achieve even bigger, and Nedbank Business Ignite on 702 understands that it takes guts and determination to show up for your customers and expand your business and your bottom line. That's why we're looking for all the SMEs of Gauteng that dare to reinvent, expand, and shake things up. You could win 200,000 Rand in cash and a 200,000 Rand advertising package to help you chase your small business dreams. So if you're a small business that dares to disrupt the industry, enter on igniteyourbusiness.co.za for Nedbank Business Ignite on 702.
702 afternoons.
With Relebogile Mabotja
Lines are always open.
on 011
883
0702.
21 minutes after 1 o'clock, and we're talking about the things that are the biggest distractions at our jobs and prevent us from getting our work done. They could be personal things. They could be the work environment itself. It could be the individuals that you work with. It could even be your own bosses. 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702 for all of your thoughts and comments. Looking on our Facebook page, and you can head over there on 702. One says, patchy network and my colleagues. It's better if I work alone away from them. Pefering says, my female colleagues, they're all over me, and unfortunately I have a jealous wife. What are you saying? What? I'm so confused. Is the comment a distraction from your work or from your marriage? Because the way he's saying it, it sounds like a distraction from his marriage. Kafu says, too many meetings and emails, always. Debbie says, watching the clock. Okay, we always watch the clock on radio because we need to be on time for things, which I'm sure you're aware we sometimes are not. But I never thought of it that way, that watching the clock is the distraction, because I'm sure you're like, it's almost 5 p.m. and then you look up and it's only 9:30 on a Monday. Sylvester says, there's this lady at work. She's pretty. I just can't get anything done because I'm busy looking at her. Russ says, social media is distracting. Sbongile says, meetings. Deely says, my imaginary work colleague. What is your imaginary work colleague? Please help me understand. Lebo Lion says food and my colleague's scuffteen. Zano says the dogs. What job are you in? What jobs are you in? Is your work like around dogs, or the boss just has dogs that, like, I'm confused. Maputi says the phone. Wesi says TikTok, and Victor says woman. Guys, I'm very concerned about the fact that women are distractions at work. Why are none of the women saying that there's a man who's a distraction at work? I am so curious as to what that's all about. Hi, Lebs, are true to that. The urgent matters from the manager. And I even top it up by saying one of the matters is going to suffer. So which one is it? That's from D. And this was just in response to me saying, if your boss says, please jump on this urgently, you always need to come back and say, no problem, boss. Just clarify like which of these urgent matters is more urgent that you'd like me to tend to, or which of these important matters need to be more urgent, and let the boss say, okay, drop this one and tend to this one on this side. On the WhatsApp line, no internet for 3 days. The emails are piling up. Mohammed in Mulla. No internet for 3 days. That is absolutely rough. I'll also tell you what else distracts from work. So I know that there's I was speaking to a friend. There was a water issue in Sandton in their area, and he was telling me that they had to go and shower at the gym with his kids. And I was like, I didn't realize that there are that many issues, because there have been issues with us as well in this area with water. And then what it means is that there will be toilets that are hired. Now, if you are working on the 3rd floor, you need to go all the way down to ground and go outside and use a bathroom because there's no water or no electricity. So to speak on to the issue of the Wi-Fi as well. More messages. Masenya says on X, those colleagues that are on Teams meetings without earphones, can you just flip it, is what they say. Yes, put your earphones on, especially if it's open plan. Renda says in a workplace, there are important assignments and emergency assignments. Often during the week, we end up dealing with more emergencies and carry a backlog of important assignments that is coming through there. Budumelo says, being at the office, I've realized that I do more work when working from home than at the office because all we do there is catch up. We've got a voice note on 072-702-1702.
Hi, Relebogile. Those people who come to work and they switch on the radio. They have like a radio, like the one that you can carry. Then they switch it on, then it's all loud. I mean, put on the earphones. We don't want to listen to your music, no matter how interesting it is. Like people, they like doing that. Even when you go to hospital, everything is loud. Why are we so loud? We're not interested in your whatever that you're listening to. Please keep it to yourself.
Guys, you heard the message and the public service announcement. Close your radios, keep your loud music to yourself, even at the hospital. La Raza is in essence what she is saying. More of your messages on X. Mabana says, co-workers, big egos, and terrible work ethic is what has come through. Another person says that having ADHD, this conversation is very, very triggering. And maybe those who do have ADHD, like what do you do to help yourself stay focused and not get distracted, especially as a tip of things that people can implement in general. Another person says there's some woman who, oh my gosh, Shaka Shabalala on X. Some woman, well, the word he used is chick, but I'll say woman, who wants to be my side chick. She knows I'm married, but she still doesn't want to listen. What is going on, gents? Like, on a serious note, what is going on? What is going on? Another one says, I'm distracted by my fellow employees who ask a lot on how to do certain things. That's Dr. OT. This is why I said in particular, I'm not trying to do open plan, especially in production. It makes it easier for people to ask you how to do things instead of figuring out how to do it themselves. Sipati says it's the automated sales calls on my personal number. I always answer thinking it is something important. And it's getting so bad, especially these, telesales calls. I don't know how the POPI Act is helping us. It is bad because some people call from, it looks like a cell phone number. And then the worst is when you answer and you answer and you're like, hello, and then you get, do you need life insurance? Today at Prime Media Insurance, we have the most amazing offer for you. After you just hung up another call for that. Hi, Relebogile, to individuals that suggest asking their managers what to prioritize, it shows the level of their inability to comprehend their role in the value that individuals provide them. Your manager isn't meant to help you determine priorities when they make urgent requests from Yusuf. I completely disagree with you, Yusuf. Let me give the context again. If you were already on something urgent that your line manager asked you to do, and then they come again with something urgent, they must make the call which of the two is more urgent. And yeah, I completely agree with you. The chewing of gum is such a distraction, can't stand it. Another one says, Lebo, the absolute worst is email after email from your office when they clearly know that you're traveling abroad with a 6-hour time difference. Relebogile, please keep me anonymous. Administrators are distractive at times, too much red tape when requesting some work to be processed, always complaining about procedures, then writing emails to the world about something that should have been sorted in the house. And these are some of your responses that has come through. And one more, Nwako says, bad jokes and helping lazy people with their job is what I absolutely dislike at work. And maybe one of these days we'll get somebody to come in and give us tips and tricks on how to stay focused and not get distracted while being productive and also being kind of available for emergencies that need your attention. It's 1:30. Time for your latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Relebogile. Good afternoon. A Pretoria Police College captain accused of raping and sexually assaulting trainees has been released on bail. The 59-year-old officer, who was arrested for allegedly raping a 20-year-old trainee and sexually assaulting another, was granted 8,000 rand bail by the Pretoria Magistrates Court today. Police watchdog IPID says it's alleged both incidents took place in his office at the Pretoria Police Training Academy, the first in March and the latest just last month. President Cyril Ramaphosa has defended transformation, saying it's a necessity and not a favor. He says the country must dispense with the false notion that a choice must be made between growth and transformation. Writing in his weekly newsletter, the president says economic growth without transformation entrenches exclusion, and transformation without growth is unsustainable. And cybersecurity experts have again sounded the alarm about phishing scams, warning consumers about persistent attempts by scammers to defraud online shoppers. The latest warning comes after e-hailing and food delivery service provider Uber faces complaints from users who have incurred costs they say aren't theirs. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at 2 o'clock or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in Dainfern, there's an accident scene that we're still dealing with on Winnie Mandela Drive near Erling, causing heavy delays from Uranium. Bumper-to-bumper traffic driving through Bedfordview heading towards Alexandra on the N3 northbound. That's between Van Buren and Linksfield Road. Also in the Greenstone area, there's slow-moving traffic heading towards Kempton Park on Modderfontein Road. That's between Laurie and Zierfontein Road. Look out for those faulty traffic lights in Randburg at Malibonga Drive and CR Swart. Traffic lights also out of order in Alex at Marlborough and Far East Bank. If you come across any other traffic issues, please SMS us on 31702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Bongani Bingwa, 702 Breakfast.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9.
You said Cape Town was in better shape in 2006 than Joburg is today. What would your first priorities be?
Money has been bleeding away from the utilities that should be the priority of a city like Joburg. That is electricity, water, sewerage, roads, all of that stuff, and make sure that that money is spent on fixing things and right-size the administration.
Helen Zille seriously considering a run for Johannesburg mayor.
Bongani Bingwa, 6 to 9.
On 702.
Dear Journal, trying to be an adult, day 3,247. My financial advisor asked if I was expecting any inheritance. I said, I don't have a trust fund, but I trust that funds will find their way to my bank account. He was not amused.
Recently removed from the family payroll? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's like 570 Rand a month, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Drive your success and trade like a champion. CFI, a global leading broker now in South Africa. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial is an authorized financial services provider.
CFI, empower yourself.
Looking for real ways to live greener? Then don't miss Green Tip of the Week, your weekly dose of sustainable inspiration from eco-entrepreneurs to climate champions. We sit down with the people making real change. Catch Green Tip of the Week every Tuesday on Afternoon Drive with John Pillman from 3 to 6 p.m. only on 702. Proudly brought to you by Volvo. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
WhatsApp Relebogile on 072 702 1702.
25 minutes to 2 o'clock, time for movies and what to stream, because this weather in particular is perfect for some entertainment. 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Phil Impela, who is joining us today, entertainment commentator and television host. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Very cold Monday in Joburg.
It is very, very cold indeed, but we shall survive. I'm excited on the things. There are people who are listening who are like, we're waiting for Phil to tell us what to watch.
Well, I'm here for them, so let's just get into it, shall we?
Let's do so.
Yeah, well, we start off with a film. I mean, if you're on social media, whether it's Facebook, X, or wherever you consume your social media, you would have seen somewhere somebody talking about this movie on Netflix called Straw, starring Taraji P. Henson. It's a wonderful, wonderful film, but I have to be very honest. I had to watch this in two parts because it's very exhausting. And for me, somebody who's not really into the action and guns and whatever, I'm more the story and performance kind of viewer and fan. For me to feel so emotionally invested and exhausted just watching this film should tell you how heavy it is. So yeah, it stars Taraji P. Henson. It's a Tyler Perry movie, but I think this is one of the best movies that he's ever done.
For reals, I was about to say, you are saying that.
Exactly. Look, I know Tyler gets a lot of flack for portraying black female struggle in a certain way and sort of like glorifying it in some of his work, right? But in this instance, this is the reality. This is the reality of a lot of disenfranchised black women in America and actually everywhere, and mothers of any race anywhere in the world who are struggling. So it's a beautiful film. I don't want to say too much about it because you literally have to watch it and be immersed in it. So it's simple. Single mother, unfortunate events just lead into one issue after the other, and she just simply has to survive. Final thing I need to say about on this is I was very pleasantly surprised by Sherry Shepherd. For those of you who watch The View online, you'll remember that she was one of the hosts on The View. She's a comedian and she's got a talk show in America. I never knew that she actually had a dramatic range. And in this film, she is amazing.
Wow.
Look, safe to say, there is an award that's coming to her. It might not be a big one like a Golden Globe, and that would be amazing, but there is some acknowledgement that's going to come for her performance in this. So this is on Netflix. It's available now.
So I have to just say, Phil, that I was watching Tasha Smith, American actress, director on The Breakfast Club, which is, what's that guy's name again? It just went out my head.
Charlemagne.
Yes, Charlemagne the God. And in any ways, she was just being interviewed, and she's like, they were asking her about why did I get married, and another season or another series rather in the whole thing. And she was like, you know, when you work on a Tyler Perry film, you shoot it in 3 days and then you're free for the weekend. She killed me.
Look, if they can make it work, I mean, it's great. But I love that. I mean, I'm getting positive news about Tyler Perry in terms of, remember he he was criticized a lot about not paying writers and, and all of that stuff. But I was very happy to hear that people like Taraji say that their first big paychecks are coming from Tyler Perry. So that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to, and I'm excited for this one, Mission Impossible.
Yeah. Disney's got you. It seems like they predicted the weather because Disney just decided to upload 6 films from the Mission Impossible film series, Tom Cruise, on Disney Plus. So all 6 films from 1996 to 2018 are available. So there are 8 films in the series, but they only uploaded 6. So we're talking about from Mission Impossible 1 to the 6th film, which is Fallout. So all of those films are now available to stream on on Disney Plus right now.
Okay, and I think for so many people, this is a big deal with the new one coming out. And I mean, I will never stop raving about how phenomenal Tom Cruise is just with performing his stunts and discovering that they actually do the stunts first and then do the script afterwards.
Yeah. Look, I'm not really a fan of those kind of action movies.
Now take it back. Take it back, Phil. Take it back. Take it back.
But I understand it. But I get it. And you know what? I'm one of those people that my motto is: you are not the target market for everything.
You know who you're reminding me of? There was a whole thread in a conversation that was saying, when did the Fast and the Furious start getting ridiculous with their stunt scenes and how like people were like the scene when they went into space with a car, and then the scene when this, and then I said to myself, but guys, those of you that love action, the storyline is like the backdrop. It is about those scenes. So you are right. It needs its audience. But please put some respect on my main man, Tom Cruise.
I love Tom Cruise. I'm a huge fan. Don't get me wrong. Right. So moving on to my favorite police procedural of all time, Law and Order SVU. They've got a new season on Prime. It's not a new season in terms of the show itself. It's season 24, but it's new to Prime. So Prime has just loaded season 24 with all 22 episodes. Go there and watch it if you love Law and Order. I'm a huge fan. I watch every single episode. I've watched every single season except the last season. I think season 26. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. I've already watched about 4, 5, 6 episodes this morning, and I'm very, very excited. So this is on Prime, which is the Amazon app. So on Prime right now, Law and Order SVU season 24 has just been loaded with 22 episodes.
Wait, how many hours is that, Phil? I was expecting you to say take 2 weeks of leave. Take 2 weeks off work. How many hours are we talking about?
Oh my God, I think it's 42 minutes per episode. So yeah, so a good 4 hours in the morning. Because I wake up very early, around like 5. So yeah, anyway. but I love it. I love procedurals because every episode is like its own little movie. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're watching the same story and all of that. So it works for me.
Can I be honest? I didn't jump on the Law and Order train. I was sucked into the CSI train. So CSI, Miami, Vegas, and I like that standalone episodic thing, though far in the background, there's the overarching storyline. So maybe I need to take a month off work just to catch up on Law and Order. We say 42 times 22 times 24 times getting snacks. I am down.
Quick one on that, so quick little tidbit on that, right? The original SVU is actually running longer than the original. So the original Law and Order started in 1990 and SVU started in 1999. But SVU has more seasons like Law and Order. So the baby is more successful than the parent. So yeah, I actually love both of them. But SVU takes the cake. So I truly understand that.
We should have been playing the soundtrack because every time you hear it, ding, 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 ding. Okay, let's move on to Wicked on Showmax.
Right, so I understand that going to the cinema these days, it's a bit of, a hit on the pocket. So a lot of people don't really get to see some of these big blockbuster films as a cinema, which is very unfortunate because you need to go out there and support the cinema industry. But Wicked, the most talked about film of last year, the highest grossing musical of whatever all time. I think that's the thing. I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah, but anyway, Wicked starring Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo is now coming to Showmax.
Ooh.
So on the 13th of June, Showmax will have Wicked on there, so you can watch it with your kids, you can watch it with your family. It's a beautiful film. It grossed over $756 million, on a $150 million budget. It was very successful. Everybody loves it. I don't have to tell you about Wicked. Everybody knows what Wicked is about, right?
That we do indeed. So I have to just ask then, Phil, because you always have the tidbits. Do you think some of the conversations just around like the PR run and the two ladies about, one getting paid more than the other has in any way overshadowed the awesomeness of the production?
You know what? If it were any other production, I would say yes. I mean, like, you look at the whole thing around, what's her name? The lady who's suing the film director for sexual harassment, right? That situation negatively impacted the film that they did together as well as the films that she did after that with other people, right? But in this case, I actually think that the whole controversy around Cynthia and Ariana actually helped the film, because I feel like for a lot of people who are not really interested in watching the film, who maybe are thinking of the odds, our law has been done and overdone, I think kind of like wanted to see what all this type is about. So on this one, I would say the controversy, the PR drama actually did well for the film, because it was really, like, as it was running in cinemas, you could not open your app and not see on there, right? So I think that in a way kind of like helped it instead of like hating it.
And I definitely think that Cynthia, for a long time, I mean, Wicked has pushed her. Yes, she was respected in the theatre space, but now it has really catapulted her, her being included in musical performances. Like, she's just so phenomenal. So I'm glad she's getting her due, and I hope she also gets her pay. Where do we find you on the socials, Phil?
I'm on X as @4Mpela. I'm also on TikTok, Khopolo_Mpela. Sometimes on IG, Instagram as Khopolo_Mpela.
That's where we're going to find him. Thank you so much for movies and what to stream.
In the last 24 hours, this is what's happened in your world.
Parliament's Constitutional Review Committee has received more than 250 proposals to amend the Constitution, but it could take up to a year to decide how many of them are worthy of the attention of the committee, which is currently dealing with legal opinions on submissions made during the previous administration. Co-chairperson of the committee, Glynis Breitenberg.
It's not a must that the committee must find matters that must be brought to the National Assembly. If none of them are of any significant import, then we'll again call for submission.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent.
Checkers XXL Savings is back with new deals every week. Save extra on Nescafe Classic Caffeinated Instant Coffee, 200 or 230 grams, any two for 199 Rand. And Baby Soft 2-ply toilet rolls, 9 per pack. Buy 2 and get a third free. Plus, stand to win the weekly XXL Jackpot competition. Simply buy any 3 participating products, swipe your extra savings card, and get a scratch card to enter. Deals valid until Sunday at Checkers.
What is bold? Is it design that keeps you intrigued from every angle? Is it style that breaks all boundaries? Is it a perspective that changes your perspective? For the Jetor Dashing, it's all of that and more. Get into the bold new Jetor Dashing from only 4,999 per month and feel what bold feels like. Book a test drive at jetor.coza. T's and C's apply. Jetor. Drive your future.
77% of South Africans rely on themselves for decision-making around financial advice, while 12% trust relatives and friends as a reliable source. 702 and Momentum invite you to share the money moments that didn't go as planned, because every financial misstep has something to teach us, and now it could also reward you. Hit primemediaplus.com and tell us about the time you followed financial advice that backfired because it didn't quite fit your unique context. You could win 10,000 Rand in cash. thanks to Momentum. This week, tune into 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa. Weekdays from 6 a.m. because we could be calling you to share your story. Turn your financial regret into something greater. Turn it into reward. T's and C's and more at primemediaplus.com.
702.
Travel.
12 minutes to 2 o'clock in our travel feature for today. It is brought to you by Standard Bank Private. Live wealthier with Africa's best private bank, as voted at the 2025 Global Finance Awards. And we are going to be talking about exploring the world's green wonders with Gabby Brondani, writer and travel correspondent. Happy Monday, Gabby. How are you doing?
Happy Monday. I'm great. Thanks, and you?
I am doing absolutely well. We take your calls with your questions. Comments, 011-883-0702, the WhatsApp line 072-702-1702. So, Gabby, why do we want to explore the world's green wonders?
So last week on the 5th of June, we celebrated World Environment Day. So we thought this was probably a really good opportunity to shine a bit of a spotlight on some of the destinations and travel organizations who are being quite proactive from a sustainability perspective, on being kinder on the environment and just playing their part in making things better from a travel perspective, from a green perspective.
Okay. And I mean, we touch on this quite often, and the fact that many travelers are in an era where it really, really is important for them to look at certain things or tick different boxes when it comes to the green perspective.
Absolutely. And I think one of the first steps in that process is understanding and doing a little bit of research about the various different destinations that you could potentially visit who are taking more steps to be a little bit more environmentally conscious. And that's in addition to the steps that you yourself would take in terms of actually executing the trip. But yeah, the destination picking is probably one of the first steps.
Okay, so let's get kicked off with the first one.
Awesome. So Costa Rica is probably one of the most well-known destinations in terms of nature conservation. So in particular within Costa Rica, nestled in the lush highlands of the destination, you've got the Monteverde Cloud Forest Reserve, it's really revered for its staggering biodiversity, and it's really got such remarkable conservation efforts behind it. So unlike traditional parks where you've got economic motivations which often seem to overshadow the environmental needs, the Monteverde Cloud Forest Reserve, it stands as a real testament to a holistic preservation. So the destination encapsulates really the most harmonious coexistence of tourism and ecology through a really transformative approach. The region has implemented community-driven initiatives that really preserve the delicate ecosystems within the cloud forest. You've got local programs that encourage sustainable coffee farming and that promote agroforestry, which also then it intertwines the livelihoods of the residents with conservation goals, which is also a really, really important thing from a sustainability perspective and supporting local communities from that perspective as well.
Okay, and I think that's such a nice one to kick off with, because in terms of people who maybe aren't thinking about some things, we're opening their minds to that. What about other options available?
So another destination is the Maldives. So particularly looking at the Club Med Resort in the Maldives, it's really one example, a shining example of responsible tourism through quite a few series of sustainable initiatives that are setting out to promote environmental conservation and also, again, supporting local communities. That's one of the big things when it comes to traveling locally and, traveling internationally or locally and wanting to be a little bit more of an environmentally conscious traveler, and from a sustainability perspective is also supporting the local communities. So the Club Med Resort's eco-friendly infrastructure, it utilizes a lot of sustainable materials, energy efficient systems, and it really sets the foundation for minimizing its environmental impact. And it's got a really big commitment to renewable energies, which is quite visible through the adoption of solar panels. If you Google Club Med Resort in the Maldives, it's those overwater villas, the pathway towards the villas, it's all lined with solar panels. It's actually quite a striking image and something so incredible. You've also got your marine conservation efforts, which are pivotal within this resort dedicated to coral reef restoration and really biodiversity monitoring to protect the fragile underwater ecosystems, especially within these water destinations where a lot of people want to snorkel and enjoy the marine life. Protecting these underwater ecosystems is really important.
Definitely, and I like that it is quite holistic when you think about the local communities. You've touched on, of course, on your solar and things like that. Your water conservation as well. What else can we really take a look at as an option?
So another option, this is also a really beautiful option from a model of renewable energy. You've got Lake Bled, which is it's such a gem in Slovenia's Julian Alps. It's known for its pristine beauty, its emerald waters. If ever you've seen a picture of Lake Bled, it's really so picturesque. And it's got this most beautiful image. It's one of the most popular images used for Lake Bled. It's a church atop a little island in the lake. It's really something so beautiful. Sustainability here, it extends beyond the aesthetics. So Lake Bled, it really embraces renewable energy as the cornerstone of its community ethos. You've got the Slovenian government and local organizations who are really playing their part in being proactive and leading the way to work together to bolster the area's sustainability credentials.
Okay, and when we look, and I'm just wondering, as you're speaking about these Alps and where one can go there, is going green automatically more expensive?
To some extent, but not necessarily. So that's also one of the arguments about traveling sustainably is that there's the point where often, especially if you're planning an international holiday, one of the biggest impacts on the environment are airlines. But that's also where it's quite important using apps like Skyscanner. I'm a big fan of Skyscanner. It's a free travel app. They've actually got something that's really, really handy where if you search for flights to a particular international destination, they've actually got a little bit of a scanner within the app that actually tells you which of the flights you can choose that is kinder on the environment. It's actually a really cool feature on Skyscanner.
Oh my gosh. So what are the elements? Is it like the type of aircraft that you're in? Is it the route? Because I would just imagine the more direct or the shorter the flight, then the friendlier on the environment, but I could be completely wrong.
So I think that definitely does have a part to play, but exactly as you've mentioned, the type of aircraft, I think it's also the way that the type of fuel that the different airlines use. I know Virgin Atlantic is very big on their sustainable aviation fuels. There was a big thing that they did flying from, I think it was from London to New York or New York to London not too long ago on sustainable aviation fuel. So there's a whole lot of elements that the airlines in particular are implementing to try and be kinder on the environment. So yeah, the CO2 filter kind of thing on Skyscanner, it does factor all of those things into the results that they spit out to you if you are looking to be a bit more environmentally conscious.
Okay, and then what else would you like to share with us on this, Gabby?
So another thing to also consider is when you get to various destinations, what does your carbon impact look like once you get there? So again, there are different factors that will affect your carbon emissions once you're at the destination, including even the choice of hotel and the food that you eat. So those are other things to consider. It definitely does help doing a lot of Google research, looking up if there are eco-certified hotels in different destinations. A lot of the destinations are putting up, if they do have a logo, if they are part of an officially recognized eco or environmentally recognized board or body within the particular country, there's a lot of things you can look at if you are looking to support more eco-friendly initiatives or hotels or tour operators or day trip providers. So yeah, definitely something to be aware of.
Okay, and I mean, Gabby Brondoni, there are so many other ways that we can really be quite active in the going green. In your view, just with your own travel experience, do you think that South Africa is a little bit behind with the green movement?
Maybe it's a little bit behind, but I do think we are making great strides in terms of catching up, particularly within the Western Cape. The Western Cape is pretty switched on in terms of wanting to be proactive in being a little bit more environmentally friendly. But yeah, we are catching up because a lot of us, especially within South Africa, are very aware of our impact on the environment, and we are trying to play our part, even in the small ways and in our day-to-day, to make an impact. So yeah, South Africa is definitely catching up.
Where do we find you on the socials, Gabby?
I'm at Gabby Brondani.
At Gabby Brondani, and that's a double B in the name. And this travel feature was brought to you by Standard Bank Private. Live wealthier with Africa's best private bank, as voted at the 2025 Global Finance Awards.
To live wealthier, you need to be able to grow your assets. At Standard Bank Private, you get a team of internationally acclaimed financial experts to advise you on local and global investment strategies. Plus, being with a leader in home loans, you can start expanding your property portfolio. So, come live wealthier with Africa's best private bank. Apply online at standardbank.co.za. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Is on X at Relebogile M.
In the next hour of the show, our parenting and parents feature, and I really want to hear from all of you. If you believe you had a good childhood, what about your childhood made it good? Is it that, well, I had both parents in the house? Is it that you were not physically abused? Is it that you didn't have a father in the house? Today we're going to be talking in our parenting and parents feature about the myth of a good childhood and what is a good childhood and that notion of, well, I turned out fine. I want to hear from all of you and then get your questions in for the Naked Scientist. 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Maki Malapo. We begin in the east of Johannesburg. Ekurhuleni police have opened a case of culpable homicide after a 12-year-old boy allegedly killed a teenager while driving his parents' car. The incident unfolded just a few hundred meters from the child's home in Brakpan. Preliminary reports suggest the young driver ran a stop sign before slamming into 14-year-old Malcolm Boysons, killing him on impact. Mungezi Koko has more.
The road has been cleared, but scattered debris, police tape and a twisted street sign tell the story. The fatal joyride, barely 800 meters long, now sits at the center of a culpable homicide case against a boy barely out of primary school. He's expected to appear in court today to explain how he got behind the wheel. The city of Ekurhuleni has condemned the incident, urging parents to keep vehicles out of children's reach. Spokesperson Zweli Dlamini.
Right now we sit with this very unfortunate incident because somewhere a mistake happened. How a 12-year-old would actually get behind the wheel of a vehicle.
For now, it's unclear what legal consequences, if any, the child will face. Mungezi Koko, Eyewitness News, Brakpan, east of Johannesburg.
We move to the courts where a Pretoria Police College captain accused of raping and sexually assaulting trainees has been released on bail. The 59-year-old officer, who was arrested for allegedly raping a 20-year-old trainee and sexually assaulting another, was granted 8,000 rand bail by the Pretoria Magistrates Court today. Police watchdog IPID says it's alleged both incidents took place in his office at the Pretoria Police Training Academy, the first in March and the latest just last month. In the most recent case, the trainee was allegedly walking with her platoon to the sleeping quarters when she was called aside by the captain. Once inside his office, he allegedly locked the door and told her that if she didn't sleep with him, he'd file a misconduct report for failing to salute him the previous month. IPID spokesperson Lizzie Shuping says the watchdog has noted a disturbing trend in rape cases involving police officials.
Reported cases of rape by police officers while on duty is also higher as compared to rape when officers are off duty.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has defended transformation, saying it's a necessity and not a favor. He says the country must dispense with the false notion that a choice must be made between growth and transformation. Writing in his weekly newsletter, the president says economic growth without transformation entrenches exclusion, and transformation without growth is unsustainable. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
The president recently challenged political parties in parliament over their views on black economic empowerment, saying it's being viewed incorrectly in relation to economic growth. He's today again moved to dispel the view that broad-based black economic empowerment is a cost to the economy. Ramaphosa says this opinion needs to be challenged and that BEE is actually an investment in the economy. For this reason, Ramaphosa says government is strengthening initiatives like the Black Industrialists Program and why it's established the Transformation Fund to support a new wave of emerging businesses that can create job opportunities. Appearing to take a swipe at his coalition partner, the DA, Ramaphosa says he can't understand why those who continue to benefit from the legacy of exclusion decry BEE to the extent of challenging it in the courts. Ramaphosa says there's a critical need for black-owned businesses to access funding on affordable terms, and private banks should review their lending practices. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News.
The KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department has joined in the rescue mission for a light aircraft that has gone missing since yesterday afternoon. It's understood 3 passengers were on board. The department says the aircraft was last tracked flying over Ladysmith after it had departed from Virginia Airport. Spokesperson Ndabizinhle Sibiya says they're in constant communication with the families of the missing individuals.
We're in touch with experts and officials from the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center following the disappearance of a light aircraft carrying 3 individuals. Ayanda Msweli, the country's leading traffic anchor, is in touch with the family of the female pilot that was in the aircraft.
And cybersecurity experts have again sounded the alarm about phishing scams, warning consumers about persistent attempts by scammers to defraud online shoppers. The latest warning comes after e-hailing and food delivery service provider Uber faces complaints from users who have incurred costs they say aren't theirs. Several Uber users have recently taken to social media claiming unauthorized payments have been deducted from their bank accounts for Uber rides and Uber food deliveries. It's believed the latest cyber scam is likely due to compromised banking details rather than a breach of the company's platform. Cybersecurity consultant Lucas Molefe says criminals could try to trick people through phishing scams like fake apps which gives them access to personal details.
Criminals don't usually hack the app itself, but instead what they might do is to trick users basically to take the information. Like, for example, installing malware on their phones if it's not protected. But what we need to understand is that the key point is the target is always the user, not the actual app itself.
Gold's trading at $3,317.95 an ounce. The rand's at 17.72 to the dollar, at 24.03 to the pound, at 20.23 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $66.65 a barrel.
Bryanston traffic sluggish on Winnie Mandela Drive. That's between Bryanston Drive and the N1 due to an earlier accident. While in the Greenstone area heading towards Kempton Park, there's slow-moving traffic on Modderfontein Road between Laurie and Zierfontein Road.
A look at your weather. A cloudy afternoon in Gauteng today with isolated showers expected. Temperatures are peaking at highs between 12 and 15 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Ekurhuleni police have opened a case of culpable homicide after a 12-year-old boy allegedly killed a teenager while driving his parents' car.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Tell us what we need to know.
702 listens.
You're with Relebogile Mabotja.
Live, streaming countrywide
On the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 2 o'clock, the second and final hour of 702 afternoons with me, Relebogile Mabotja. And we're going to jump straight into it in the second hour of the show. our parenting and parents feature. We're going to talk about the myth of a good childhood, and we're joined by David Gonsalves, who is a clinical psychologist. And then we jump to the naked scientist, Dr. Chris Smith, for all of your science-related questions. So get in touch with us. Give us a call, 011 883 0702. SMS us 31702. Tweet at Relebogile M at Radio 702 using the hashtag 702 afternoons. And the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Parenting and Parents
on 702.
Parenting and Parents time. I had stumbled upon a conversation happening all online where somebody was saying some people think and believe they had a good childhood, but maybe they think that because it was in comparison to things that are much, much worse. So the question I want to kick off with to all of you before we welcome our guest into this is, if you believe you had a good childhood, what made it good? If you believe you had a bad childhood as well, share with us what could have made it a good childhood or why you describe it as bad. We do have statements where people will say, yeah, I was beat, but I turned out fine, kept me out of jail. And others who say, well, I had a good childhood because, I had two parents in the household, irrespective of what those two parents in the household contributed or took away from their childhoods. So I want to hear from all of you on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702, as we are joined by David Gonsalves, who is a clinical psychologist. David, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I was very, very touched about this intriguing question of a good childhood, because we also are in an era where we are recognizing certain things that maybe previously were not labeled as traumatic, and now we're becoming aware about certain things we went through that were problematic. And this is in no way a session of wanting to villainize parents who maybe did the best that they did, but we are able to also separate the individuals from the things they did or didn't do, while also recognizing there are some people who probably should have never been parents in the first place or even had a child kept in their care. I want to share with you very briefly something interesting I saw this morning. There's a woman who was chatting about how when she was growing up, certain things were very normal because that's what happened in her household, until she was much older when she realized this is actually weird and awkward. Now, for those of you with children in the car, I'm going to very briefly say something, and I will keep it as PC as possible. For those of you with children in the car. But in essence, what she expressed is that her mother and stepfather spoke openly about sex in the house all the time, to the point that when she was a teenager, they kept asking her, like, when are you going to get a man? And it became a normal thing until she was dating her now husband. And in the household, the parents were speaking openly about how when they were having an affair, some of the things that they would do. And this now husband-to-be was absolutely like shocked and uncomfortable. And she realized, oh my goodness, this is not normal. That I thought, well, I've got two parents in the home. Yes, my parents divorced, but I'm fed and I went to a good school. Until now, you become exposed and you realize this was terribly inappropriate for a child to even think about such things. And I was like, my goodness, the things that can happen in people's homes, but our measure of good childhood could, yeah. So, David, from your side, I mean, I know as a psychologist, you often refrain from labeling things as just overall good or bad. But what would you say is the first thing that comes to mind when you think the myth of a good childhood?
Well, I think it's important to establish the distinction between what's normal and what's appropriate, right? So something that's normal is something that could have been normalized, but the question is it appropriate? So, the myth of a good childhood, it often depends on our perspective. So like you rightly said earlier, some people would say, my parents are always kind to each other, or they were always kind to me, or we always had everything we needed. And people who have grievances or issues around their childhood might feel guilty because the person next door to them, grew up in a much more brutal fashion, perhaps, or in a much more, where none of their needs were met. So it certainly is something that I think you shouldn't just ignore. Any feelings you have, any gaps you may feel you have, just because they were, very small compared to the person next to you. And then, of course, also there's the perspective of appropriateness. What is appropriate? So to your example, to be discussing those things of a sexual nature in front of underage kids or even kids in general. I know some 40-year-olds who don't want to know that their parents had sex.
Right.
So there is a line of appropriateness that I think perhaps gets stepped over, and that can cause trouble even if it's not extreme.
So if a person is going through the process of their healing journey and just growing up, and they start to recognize, I used to think that was okay, and now I realize it's not. It can be such a difficult and confusing time for an adult because of what that would mean. What would you say to all of those individuals? I mean, before turning 21, took myself to therapy. That was my 21st gift. And I said, I'm not going to wait to have problems. And it was in that process that I started to realize, oh my gosh, that was not okay. Or this was not okay. And because I had such great relationships with both parents, it made it difficult to be like, okay, but what do I do with this now?
Yeah, unfortunately, that step that you took, most people don't take. And they start to realize that there's a discrepancy or a gap when it starts to affect other parts of their lives. So what often happens is that people grow up, we all want to say we had a happy childhood, and there are some people who would like to say they did not have a happy childhood. But it really helps to go and seek professional help in this regard. And it's not just, therapy, it could be coaching, could be many different forums where you can just get a gauge for what was appropriate. One of the most key things towards having a happy childhood is a child has to feel met and heard. It's not about the brand names, it's not about going to the right schools, it's not about living in the right areas, but it's certainly about being met, being heard, being contained, and being given, the opportunities that your parents could give you. I think very often parents are under pressure to feel like they've got to give a whole lot more than they actually can. And in truth, that's not it. But we're kind of looking at it more from the child's perspective, right? So from your own childhood perspective, I think it's really valuable for any person to just get a gauge to kind of figure out what was normal and what's appropriate and to distinguish the difference.
I want to touch on, what you said about a child feeling met, their needs met and feeling heard. My child's play therapist, when we, were chatting about his tantrums and some of the things he does, and she said, this is a good sign for a toddler because he feels safe. And it completely flipped how I felt. I was like, actually doing a good job that he feels safe to, to argue and to push back and to resist and to test boundaries. So what does safety mean? Because I know that's such a big part, which sometimes people only start to have these things revealed in their intimate partner relationships where they're like, I didn't realize I was living on survival mode, or I didn't realize I was hyper independent, or I didn't realize that I was parenting my parents and didn't get to have a childhood because it didn't look like it.
So safety is a very important thing. So I always explain to people, safety has got nothing to do with burglar bars or high walls. Safety has to do with where it is safe for you to express your emotions. I've seen cases, for example, where a child shows model behavior, but where they've, in cases, gone and committed murder later.
Wow.
So they know where to model the correct behavior because in that environment, it's not safe for them to express themselves. But they have all this other stuff going on, which then expresses itself in inappropriate ways. And in some cases, it can become quite extreme. So safety, emotional safety, is about feeling like the environment that you're in, your primary environment with mom and dad, or a place where you can express yourself. Now, I'm not advocating for bad behavior either, but I think you know what I mean. It's really about creating an environment where your child is able to express to you what they're feeling, even if what they're feeling is uncomfortable for them or may even be so for you.
So when you deal with patients who start to have a realization that, hey, maybe my childhood is not as good as what I thought it was, what would you say action steps should be? Because speaking the hypothetical, I don't want to say la la land, but the la la land part is this conversation. Doing the actual work is something completely different.
So different psychologists would work at this in different ways. For me, my approach very much is where am I now and where do I want to be? So in the case where someone realizes, gosh, I've been exposed to things that were inappropriate, were normalized. One of the first questions is that how do you want to be? Where would you like your normal to be? And we work on that. But certainly the action steps, as you ask, is about figuring out where you feel like your compass lies. Most of us have a natural compass that can sort of know where is right and where is wrong, where is too much and where is too little. And sometimes that's the work of a therapist or a psychologist, is to help you hear your compass, help you feel like you're then operating in that space that's appropriate and that's more corrected for you.
Then what do you say to prospective parents or adults who say, I could never be a parent because of the kind of childhood I had, that it was not amazing, and there is that innate fear of creating a bad childhood for their possible children?
That's a great question, because there's a fair amount of people who have exactly that fear. And so what I would say to them is go and do some self-examination, do some self-work, because what gets ignored can easily be repeated. And that is certainly a fear that those people sometimes carry, is they don't want to give the childhood that they had, or they realize how children can be hurt or harmed, and they don't want to bring people into a world that can hurt or harm children. But as parents, we can be instrumental in creating a part of that world and facilitating that world to be different.
We take your calls on 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 702. We've got some WhatsApps for you.
Normal childhood cannot happen unless if in a home a child is loved unconditionally. It cannot happen if there are no boundaries. It cannot happen if there is no safety. Lack of unconditional love can lead to toxic shame, which affects many adults. George from Pretoria.
Hi, Sister Relebogile. I'd like to be anonymous from Johannesburg. And I was raised in a household whereby I was raised by both parents, but my dad was a narcissist. So, and by the way, he kind of somehow infected my mom. There was never a point where my dad would apologize whenever he's wrong. He's always bashing people, even up to now. Like, I've cut all ties with my parents because of he never sees himself as wrong. He's always right. And to me, that was bizarre. And I'm trying to raise, right now that I'm a father of two, I'm trying to raise my kids differently. Yeah. And I just find that my dad was just someone else who just grew up in a toxic way, and he was transferring that to us, and he infected my mom. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's life.
Hi, Relebogile. I used to think I had a good childhood, and I think that was because everybody around me kept on telling me that I had a good childhood, and that included my parents. And I think a very big danger of the myth of a good childhood is what everybody else tells you. It's almost like generalized gaslighting. And it took a very, very long time to realize that actually having overprotective parents who are controlling has led to a lot of the problems that I have now. This is Tidi.
That last voice note, I'm going to work us backwards with Tidi saying the part about being told, because if society looks at you and says, you're so lucky, you know, you're being taken on holiday, you're so lucky that X, Y, and Z. I never thought of that perspective of if you're completely conditioned and being told, then you wouldn't think otherwise, because now you must gaslight yourself when you're like, but why do I feel so terrible?
Yeah, so I like the concept of that sort of emotional gaslighting, because essentially what gaslighting is making us take less stock in our own emotions. It's another way you could define it. So I've had, for example, clients who in a very wealthy family keep being told, you know, we didn't have these overseas holidays, these brands, these this and these that. So you've got the perfect upbringing. But those parents at the same time were completely emotionally and even many times physically unavailable to those children. So they'd be told you had a very privileged upbringing, you had all of this, but there's silence.
That comparison of, well, in my day, we had to. So if you're going to complain that, like, you know, this is happening on the way to school. Well, in my day, I had to walk 7 kilometers. I never thought of that one.
Yeah.
That's terrible, actually.
Absolutely. Some parents, they walked uphill to school and they walked uphill back home, and it just doesn't even make sense geographically, right?
Yeah.
So, and so that is, you know, the devil does sometimes lie in comparison. And it's such a complicated thing, Relebogile, because we also need to have gratitude for that, right? I mean, I was raised by a man my grandfather was a violent alcoholic, my grandmother was blind, and he used to beat his blind wife.
Wow.
My father never raised his hand to my mom. He never did any of those things. He was not a drinker, but, you know, he stepped it up. So the question always is, as parents, is what do we do? And it really is important to learn yourself, study yourself. But you're right, some people are being told that they can't. To this caller's message, you're told you had a great childhood, and it almost negates your ability to analyze that childhood and deal with some of the feelings that you had that perhaps weren't that pleasant.
And your actual experiences. I mean, there's a message here saying my parents were good parents to us, their kids, but not good spouses to each other. And it's only now in adulthood that I realize how that affected me. And I think that's one that people overlook is the involvement or enmeshment or what children are exposed to, where mom's a great mom, dad's a great mom, but maybe the two of you not being great to each other, and the children experiencing that in itself can make the childhood almost all the good things in inverted commas null and void. Totally.
You know what I always say to my clients is when you prioritize your marriage over your children benefit.
Yep. I've heard this. I struggled to understand it, but I understand it now, especially because children are going to model how they interact with other individuals based on what they see at home. There's an interesting question here from Noni, which says, why are younger generations always aggrieved about their upbringing? And I'm not talking about people growing up in dysfunction, but what happened to resilience? I'm so confused. Oh, I'm going to let you go first.
Oh boy, thank you very much.
Yep.
You know, I agree with the sentiment that, you know, we've got to be careful of becoming so good at finding out what was wrong, we leave out what was right.
Yes.
And a part of, you know, I feel like I repeat this so often to people in my consulting rooms is we've got to learn to keep what was good and appreciate that, and learn to change what wasn't and not repeat that. Because it's very easy to say, you know, I had all of these things go wrong, but it's important for us to deal with our pain not as a badge, but as a task. You don't wear your pain and display it for the world. You learn your pain and you learn to work through it, but it shouldn't be a badge. It shouldn't be the thing that you define yourself by.
So I would add, Noni, that you also have to remember that as generations have started to move on, we've become more vocal. So does it mean we are more aggrieved, or that now you know about it? Similarly to, let's use our HIV statistics, for example. People can now come and say, oh, at some point when South Africa was doing the stats, oh, suddenly it's like, oh, well, suddenly HIV got so bad. For all we know, it was there all along, but we were not reporting on it. So here's the question. If you were to speak to your grandparents and ask them if they had good childhoods, would they be less aggrieved? Or is it that the younger generations now have platforms and are more vocal? They have the words and the language. Because I look at what my mother went through. I look at what my grandmother went through. If anything, they were more aggrieved because they didn't have outlets. It was inappropriate to go and complain to your aunt about something your mother did. It was inappropriate for your grandmother to complain, and the chain continues. So my question to you is it that younger generations are more aggrieved about their upbringing, or younger generations now have the words that you didn't have? And that for me is the real question. Now going to a psychologist is normalized. Previously, if you went to a psychologist because you're crazy, previously people would lie about what was wrong with you and lock you up in your room. So I don't agree that younger generations are more aggrieved. I just believe now we have platforms to speak freely about it. And I don't know if that makes sense, David.
Completely. And we've got to consider, so there's two cultural things that play a part in that. The first is that the timelessness. All around the world, the previous 2-3 generations back, people born, for example, around World War II are now known as the silent generation because they did not speak emotions. My father was born in 1942, and I tell you, he'd have to be dying before he actually mentioned these things that happened in his past. And so that's the one, is this timeless sort of generational change in a cultural sense globally. And in South Africa, we've got to bear in mind that culturally, the majority of South Africans, you do not question older people, or you did not. You did not question what happened in the past. I've had many clients over the last 25 years who've said to me, I don't know who my father is, and I never asked because I knew my mother just wouldn't, I just couldn't ask her. Right? Today, we can, that becomes less and less common. So it is true that people are a lot more expressive today, a lot more vocal, and the conversations are perhaps more tolerated for these things to come out. And I would argue that that's a good thing.
I mean, I would compare it to how people say young people don't know how to stay in marriages, blah, blah, blah. And then I would say, like, have you ever actually asked your grandmother if she was happy in her marriage? Have you asked your grandfather if he was happy in his marriage? Some of them were forced to get married because one person became pregnant. Some of them were forced to stay in marriages because they were not earning an income, and so on and so forth. David, closing thoughts on the myth of a good childhood.
So the myth of a good childhood, my closing thought would be, we wish for everyone to have a good childhood, but how do you define a good childhood? If you feel that you have a whole lot of emotional baggage from your own childhood, have the freedom to go and have that in a safe environment away from your family examined. Look at that. Don't allow for people to tell you your childhood was good. You figure out if it is, as an adult, and I'm speaking to adults on right listeners, is you figure out and what wasn't there, or you feel the gaps that were there. It's important to learn what those were, because that's a big part of how we define ourselves as adults.
And I would just add in closing, try not to compare when you really are trying to navigate what the experience was for you, because it's easier to be like, well, at least I went to a private school, my cousins didn't, or at least, we love that term, at least. So have an absolute think about that. David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Relebogile. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's just after 2:30, time for your latest Eyewitness News headlines. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Relebogile. Good afternoon. Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee says the phenomenon of ghost workers is not an administration error, but organised crime within government. Chairperson of the committee, Jan de Villiers, believes the issue is so widespread that thousands of ghost workers are currently milking the system to the tune of millions every month after infiltrating the payroll system. De Villiers was addressing a briefing in Parliament today as part of the governance cluster. In the courts, a lawyer in the Senzo Meyiwa trial has missed court today after running the Comrades Marathon. Advocate Charles Mnisi wrote a letter informing Judge Rata Mokgwatleng that he would be participating in the race and would need time off, but Judge Mokgwatleng rebuked him for the request, making controversial remarks about black lawyers, which he has since apologized for. And government is appealing to the families of freedom fighters whose remains were never returned from exile to come forward with any information that may help identify their burial sites. This is part of the Exile Repatriation Program, which aims to bring home the remains of numerous freedom fighters who were buried in exile. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at 3 o'clock or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, we still have slow-moving traffic. That's in the Bryanston area on Winnie Mandela Drive between Bryanston Drive and the N1. Otherwise, the rest of 702 Land looking pretty good. No serious accidents have been reported on our highways at this hour. Just look out for those faulty traffic lights. So in Alex at Marlborough Drive and Far East Bank in the city of Tshwane, I see there's slow-moving traffic in the Irene area on Pierce Drive. This is approaching Main Road. There's also traffic lights not working in the Rand Park Ridge area at Bearsnodia and the N1. If you come across any other traffic issues, please SMS us on 31702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic. Mvangeli Nzuza will have your next Eyewitness News traffic update just after 3.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Mzansi Ballet's finest come together in one spectacular show. Fusion of Favorites, a unique and highly anticipated performance set to take place at Peter Turin's Monte Casino Theatre from the 19th to the 27th of June. The performance will also feature the world premiere of Vincent Manzwe's Song of Kudugo Exodus, as well as new works by Angela Reevy. There are only 4 shows, so get your tickets now before they sell out. Secure yours at webtickets.co.za.
Kickstart your small business with a starter bundle from Nedbank. Enjoy free transactions for 6 months, including free cash deposits and withdrawals and a free debit card with easy digital access and a dedicated banker to guide you along every step of the way. Open a Nedbank starter bundle with SA's best bank for SMEs. Apply on the Money app today. Nedbank. See money differently. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Volksfest deals are back. Get a free upgrade to the Polo Vivo Life when you buy a new Polo Vivo and pay 0% deposit. Get more features at no extra cost. Buy it now and only pay 3 months later. Offer valid only through Volkswagen Financial Services. Looking for something sportier? The stylish T-Cross is yours from just 399,900 Rand. These Volksfest deals won't last. Visit your nearest dealer today or visit vw.co.za.
77% of South Africans rely on themselves for decision-making around financial advice, while 12% trust relatives and friends as a reliable source. 702 and Momentum invite you to share the money moments that didn't go as planned, because every financial misstep has something to teach us, and now it could also reward you. Hit primemediaplus.com and tell us about the time you followed financial advice that backfired because it didn't quite fit your unique context. You could win 10,000 Rand in cash thanks to Momentum. This week, tune into 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa, weekdays from 6 a.m. because we could be calling you to share your story. Turn your financial regret into something greater. Turn it into reward. T's and C's and more at primemediaplus.com.
Coming up
on 702 Drive with John Perlman.
702 Drive with John Perlman is coming up from 3 to 6 p.m. Happy Monday, John. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks. Happy Monday to you and good afternoon to all our listeners.
All right. Did you get a chance to hear it? We were talking about top of the show, about the things that distract you at work, that keep you from actually doing what you need to get done.
No, I actually didn't. I was in a meeting.
So that's what we're talking
about. Which distracts us from doing any work.
So people have mentioned meetings, emails, people playing music or not wearing earphones for or headphones for their team's meetings. Some said lazy people who want to pass the job on to you. Another person said urgent matters being interrupted by your boss's other urgent matters.
Yes.
One person said the cold is distracting me. Others said their phones and social media. What distracts you from getting your work done?
So not so much now, but earlier in my career, I was that guy who used to like to stroll around chatting to other people about things that I found really interesting. So
I know your type.
Yeah, I also know my type. I've tried to get better at it, but I've always loved that about work, is the hanging out. And I know you're not paid for it, but as a journalist, I always used to rationalize it and say, well, I'm bouncing ideas off colleagues.
Yes.
And we're talking about what's going on and how we should cover it and so on. But I used to really like hanging out.
So no
I'm
one
not so bad
distracts you.
anymore.
You are the one doing the distracting, basically.
You know, the thing about when I was in newspapers,
Yes.
the deadlines, they're tough deadlines, especially for people on dailies, but I always worked on weeklies. So, yeah, I always got my work done, and people
And
seemed
then
to
the
be
dailies
happy.
guys were like, well, we didn't get our work
I suspect they saw me coming. I mean, maybe some of them will phone in and thought, oh, man, here he comes again. Oh, did you watch the rugby? What did you think? You know, I was that guy.
I see. What's coming up on your show today?
Did you watch the tennis? Oh, sorry, you're trying to work.
Wait,
Okay.
I'll tell you what I did watch, though.
Yeah.
What's the girl's name from the tennis?
Arina Sabalenka or Coco Gauff? Which one?
Coco. So
Yeah.
that final moment, I watched that slow-mo of her getting that shot, and then I just watched it over, and I felt like it was so personal.
Yeah. Well,
You
it is.
just
It is. It's an wonderfully intense sport, two completely contrasting finals, but marvelous each in their own way.
So what did you have for breakfast? No, just kidding. What's coming up on your show today?
Oats. That, by the way, stands for every single day of the year.
I
Same
love it.
breakfast. Boring guy who always wants to chat about his breakfast. So coming up on the show, Judge Ratam Mokgwatleng, who is presiding over the Senzo Moyiwa murder trial, made remarks last week after one of the advocates said that they wouldn't be in court on Monday because they were running the Comrades Marathon, and he got very angry, made comments for which he was accused of being racial in his formulation of what he had to say today. He gave a very detailed apology. Khomotso Modise is in court, and we're going to talk to her about the reaction after he made the apology. There's been some discussion on the shows before me already today. Department of Basic Education, Relebogile, is talking about a program they're going to introduce that will start teaching younger people in high school about entrepreneurship. I'm going to talk to somebody who's looked at that before, but then also ask our listeners, if you have become entrepreneurial in your life, where did you learn that? Did you learn it with an uncle or an aunt who was fabulously good at making and selling dresses, or at running a little chain of stores, or whatever it might be? Entrepreneurship and young people, that's very much in our spotlight a little bit later. We're going to pick up on the Comrades Marathon, some interesting stories out of that. I'd love to hear from our listeners, anyone doing the race for the first time, or if you just want to talk about your run, please do give us a call on that. And then finally, in Youth Month, which job sectors are opening up spaces for young people? The general position is a gloomy one, but it's not a uniformly gloomy one. If they're rays of light, we're going to find out where they are and see if we can make them burn a little brighter.
There we go, 702 Drive with John Pullman from 3 to 6 p.m.
702.
The Naked Scientist.
20 minutes to 3 o'clock, time for the Naked Scientist. We take your science-related questions on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 702. Doctor, how are you doing?
Fascinating discussion about office chit-chat and office life. I completely absorbed myself into that and didn't get distracted by what John Perlman was saying. Well, maybe I did. Maybe I was. I cannot work in open plan offices, you know. I find them terribly, terribly distracting. And it's interesting that the population tend to fall into two groups. There are some people who are a bit like me, who can't work in that environment, and they have to sort of take themselves off and isolate themselves and insulate themselves from distraction, because you just can't concentrate with anything going on around you. And then there are some people who say completely the opposite. I cannot work in this sort of completely unstimulating environment. I have to have hubbub going on around me. Really interesting. My wife will sit there doing her paperwork for her medical job with the television, usually a home makeover program on in the background. And I was saying to her, how on earth can you concentrate with that? And she goes, I can't do my work properly if I don't have this on. So which are you? Are you a distraction person or a non-distraction person?
I have to be honest, I do have days where I can work. So it depends what kind of work it is. So if it's creative, where like a presentation or a pitch, I cannot have anything else on. If I'm working on a budget or, sending out emails, I can have certain type of content like the random Kardashians in the background. It can't be like a movie that you like intensely need to follow a storyline. So it all depends on what the workload is. But sometimes I do enjoy working with like HGTV playing in the background or Food Network.
Yeah, I suppose there are some tasks which are a bit kind of repetitive, where once you've got the process going, you don't need to think about it. And it then releases your mind to think about other stuff. I suppose sort of digging the garden is one example of that, isn't it? So I think I'm probably in the same camp as you then. When it's a creative thing, you've got to really get the words right. It has to be quiet. But when it's something a little bit mindless and enjoyably mindless, then a bit of stimulation's a good thing. I'm with you, I think.
All right, we open up the lines 011 8830702, the WhatsApp line 0727021702 for your science-related questions. Here is one from Alan and Fishhook who says, I would really like Dr. Chris to say a few words about the Higgs boson. Is it boson or boson?
Boson.
Boson.
Yeah, the Higgs boson.
There we go.
They're the force carriers. Yeah.
So he says this boson is supposed to give atomic particles their weight, also known as mass times 9.8, to get newtons. Stephen Hawking was skeptical about the whole concept, and rightly so it seems. He bet Kip Thorne it was unnecessary and lost on a technicality, and many of us thought it was most unjust. Dr. Chris, please, what do you say on who was right and who was wrong?
Well, Peter Higgs got the Nobel Prize. He's unfortunately died now, sadly, but he got the Nobel Prize relatively recently for the particle or the theory that now bears his name, the Higgs boson. Now, the background to this whole story is that we have a standard model, as it's known. This is nothing to do with catwalks and Parish Fashion Week. The standard model is an explanation for the building blocks of the universe. In other words, we know that there are atoms, and we know that atoms have things inside them. Those are subatomic particles, and those subatomic particles of protons and neutrons, they are themselves made up of building blocks, quarks, that assemble to make them. But the one thing when we put all this together, having smashed particles together in accelerators like CERN, the one thing that no one could explain is why, when I put a blob of gold on a weighing scale, it has, as Alan says, weight. Why should anything have mass? What is this stuff? Why should particles weigh something? And the insight of Peter Higgs was to say, well, I'm going to propose that there is this field across the universe, and this field is effectively conveyed by these force carriers, the bosons, the Higgs bosons. And when matter interacts with that field, the field confers upon it mass. So it gives things the reason to have a weight when they're on Earth, for example. And this was just a theory for a long, long time until at CERN in 2012, they made the first announcement that having done these accelerator experiments where you smash particles together at very high energies, very close to the speed of light they're traveling when they smash into each other, you produce collisions and then products of those collisions which enable you to test theories about whether or not these things exist. And in 2012, and then subsequently it was confirmed in subsequent years to a higher degree of confidence, there does appear to be findings consistent with the existence of the Higgs boson that Peter Higgs, the Edinburgh physicist, had foreseen or predicted decades ago. And this was rewarded with a Nobel Prize and is our current best guess reason for why, when you put your gold ring, your tin of beans or your packet of flour on the scales, it weighs something.
Thank you so much for that detailed question. We open up the lines to the rest of you, 011 8830702 and the WhatsApp line 0727021702.
Every time we are on the radio, we are not just talking.
We're turning words into actions Actions that change communities.
Actions that make a difference. And every time you tune into 702,
you're not just listening to the radio, you're in conversation with us.
And your voice matters. You're on a journey with us.
And every step we take counts.
It's these steps that not only help us grow as individuals, but also bring us together as a society.
Through the good times and the bad.
Every step gets us closer to the South Africa we want to be.
So keep walking with 702.
And let's make this a journey to remember. 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Dear Journal, trying to be an adult, day 3,268. I love payday because my salary would look huge to 15-year-old me, but that's in 2011 money, not 2024 money. 28-year-old me is not so easily embraced.
Recently removed from the family payroll? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's like 570 Rand a month, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
Good health starts on the inside. Biogen Multivitamin Plus offers a comprehensive vitamin and mineral supplement designed to support daily energy and immunity, boost mental performance, and combat stress. Available in senior 50 plus and children's gummies too. You can have the whole family covered. Biogen, for the results you want. Visit biogen.co.za to find out how you can get up to 15% off Biogen products with Virgin Active.
Every small business owner knows that you got to dream big to achieve even bigger. And Nedbank Business Ignite on 702 understands that it takes guts and determination to show up for your customers and expand your business and your bottom line. That's why we're looking for all the SMEs of Gauteng that dare to reinvent, expand, and shake things up. You could win 200,000 Rand in cash and a 200,000 Rand advertising package to help you chase your small business dreams. So, if you're a small business that dares to disrupt the industry, enter on igniteyourbusiness.co.za for Nedbank Business Ignite on 702. T's and C's apply. Nedbank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
702.
The Naked Scientist.
11 minutes to 3 o'clock. We continue with The Naked Scientist with Dr. Chris Smith. All of your science-related questions, get them in on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 7021 702. We go to the lines. John in Westdean. Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks, and you?
Oh, still alive?
Yes, go ahead.
Please, I wanted to ask Dr. Chris about shingles. I got terrible shingles. I had about 2 weeks.
Okay, what is your question, John?
Hello?
Yes, you said you've got terrible shingles?
Yes, I've tried everything, and it doesn't seem to go. What can I do?
Thank you, John.
Oh, John, I'm so sorry to hear that. And you know what? You're in really good company, because about 3 weeks ago, I got my first dose of shingles. Never had it in my life. And there it was. I thought I'd been attacked by an extremely hungry, very vicious mosquito. But then I realised, and I'm slightly embarrassed to say I was late to the diagnosis as a virologist, that this was shingles. But it was when it turned painful and was blatantly not a mosquito. I thought, I know what this is. So what actually is shingles? Well, shingles is a manifestation of infection with the chickenpox virus, varicella zoster. The first time we catch chickenpox, you get that horrible all-over body rash, which is intensely itchy, blistering, and goes everywhere. Once that clears up, the virus has invaded your nervous system. And varicella zoster virus, or chickenpox, is a herpes virus. It's very closely related to the herpes simplex virus that causes cold sores. These viruses live throughout your life, for the rest of your life, in your nervous system. And they always say that James Bond said diamonds are forever. Well, herpes is for life. Once you've had a herpes virus, you never get rid of it because it exists, in the case of chickenpox, as a DNA message for the virus hiding in the sensory nerves throughout your body. And periodically, it reactivates. And that means that the genetic program that makes new viruses turns on in those DNA messages inside your nerve cells. And in one patch of nerves that supply one patch of your skin, it reactivates and it breeds new viruses they come down the nerve fibres, bud out onto the skin, infect the overlying skin, and produce infectious blisters. So when you have that rash of shingles, it's fully infectious and can give chickenpox to someone that's never had chickenpox. But it won't cause shingles or chickenpox in anyone who's already had chickenpox, because you can't get chickenpox more than once. You only ever get that once. So what causes it to reactivate like that? Well, the answer is age is the biggest risk factor. As we age, our immune system becomes less agile. And by that, I mean the immune system becomes less good at keeping the virus in check. Now, that isn't the only reason, and other things can make it happen too. If you take drugs to suppress your immune system, that will make it happen. If you traumatize the skin, sometimes that's enough to make it happen. And if you get low, run down, or get other intercurrent illnesses, they also will leave you feeling debilitated and vulnerable, and the virus can come out. And when it does, you don't have very long to intervene. There's a drug called acyclovir, which is very, very effective. You have to pop a lot of pills. It's a big dose every day, but you've got to start it promptly. As soon as either the rash is going to appear, because you can tell, or you see the first spots, you start taking that acyclovir. You take it for a week. It does knock it on the head, and it stops the manifestation known as post-herpetic neuralgia. Because in a proportion of people who get shingles, the patch of skin that it affects can become exquisitely painful afterwards, and it remains painful and feeling a bit weird for a long period of time. But you can reduce the risk of that happening if you take acyclovir promptly. The other thing you can do, if you are prone to this happening, there are now some very effective shingles vaccines, and one of them uses a weakened form of the virus itself, and a newer vaccine uses just a component of the virus, not the whole virus, and that's also extremely effective, and that's just been licensed in the last few years. So if this is a recurrent problem for you, in the near term, get some acyclovir, but you have to start taking it promptly after the rash appears, or it won't do any good. Second thing, see if you can get someone to check, make sure this is shingles, we're not missing something, and if it is, ask about the vaccine, because that may well help to knock this on the head. And the other spin-off we found the other day, scientists discovered that if you are vaccinated against shingles, it seems to dramatically reduce your risk by about 20% of getting dementia. But that's a whole different story.
Thank you so much, John, for that question. And I really, really hope you get sorted out ASAP. We've got a voice note on 072-702-1702.
Hey, could you please ask Chris, what does he think of CBD oil? It seems to be like a wonder drug that cures everything. I'm a bit skeptical about it. Could you please ask him? Thank you. It's Caroline from Vanderbilt. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Caroline. Caroline's referring to cannabidiol, CBD, which is one of the components which is in the leaves and flowers of the cannabis plant. And it doesn't have any of the psychoactive effects of THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the stuff that when people consume cannabis produces the mood-altering effects. It doesn't have those effects, but some people claim CBD can have a range of effects, including an anti-inflammatory effect, and possibly it can have pain control effects and so on. I've yet to see any really good clinical trials that have subjected this to proper, rigorous scrutiny, because at the moment it's in the realms of being a herbal remedy. If these sorts of studies exist, please do share them with me. If anyone's listening and saying, I know of a study, do please send it to me, chris@thenakedscientist.com. I'd love to read it, but I've yet to see any really strong, compelling clinical studies that prove CBD is anything other than just a health food supplement and really has any major proper physiological effect on the body. So I would be tempted at this stage, if you find you have an indication that means you need to have something like that, make sure you've been properly investigated and that doctors aren't missing something. Explore other remedies that may well be more effective before just listening to what the bandwagon's doing, because it's via that sort of route that we get ourselves into trouble.
Doctor, there's some other questions that opened up based on the shingles question. The one says, please can I stay anonymous? My colleague disclosed last week that she has chronic shingles such that it's affecting her liver and kidney, and she's still at the office. Is it contagious?
Well, shingles is contagious because it's the chickenpox virus, but if it's on a covered part of the body, The only part of your body that's infectious when you have shingles is the bit with the rash. And if you can't see the rash because there are clothes on top of it, we know, and we've studied this in great detail in the hospital because of the infection control implications, the risk of transmission from shingles on a covered body part is near zero. Shingles on an open part of the body, for instance on the face, on uncovered arms or legs, that's a different matter. And that can transmit the infection, and with a significant exposure, more than about 15 minutes of talking time in a room, that's what we judge as significant exposure, yes, you could catch the virus if you've never had chickenpox. But if you've had chickenpox in the past, you can spend as long as you like with someone with shingles and they're no risk to you. And in most countries, about 90% of people have actually had chickenpox, so you're not at risk under those circumstances.
Last question around shingles as well. Are shingles related to HIV and AIDS? From Manga.
Well, Manga, the answer is it can be, in the sense that although the virus is varicella zoster virus, it's a chickenpox virus, it can find that it's linked to what HIV and AIDS is doing, because HIV damages the immune system. And if it robs a person of an effective immune response, this can allow the chickenpox virus that's latent in the nervous system to escape, and it can reactivate. So we do see people who have immune suppression, whether that's because of drugs that suppress the immune system or because of diseases like HIV, it can cause more reactivations and can cause the person therefore to have more shingles, or a more serious manifestation of shingles called disseminated zoster, where it does spread around the body. And those can be life-threatening cases. So yes, they are linked, but it's a totally different virus and a totally different disease process between shingles and HIV.
Dr. Chris Smith, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Dear Journal, trying to be an adult, day 3,268. I love payday because my salary would look huge to 15-year-old me, but that's in 2011 money, not 2024 money. 28-year-old me is not so easily impressed.
Recently removed from the family payroll? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's like 570 Rand a month, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
Are you in your deal-making season? Your I'm on the rise season? Your finer things in life season? You'll love the Hussa Grill seasonal lunch offer. Enjoy a 2-course meal for only 199 Rand. Perfect for that business lunch, lunch with friends, or a solo date for some quality time with self. Now that's the deal of the season. Available Monday to Saturday, 12 to 4 p.m. The Hussa Grill, celebrating 60 years of excellence.
This week on 702 RMB Africa Focus explores energy through an African lens. Join award-winning journalist Crystal Alderson as she unpacks the realities of Africa's just transition and how the continent is forging its own path toward an inclusive energy future. It's a conversation about access, equity and opportunity, powered by insights from RMB experts. Don't miss RMB Africa Focus on 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa on Tuesday, and 702 Drive with John Pullman on Thursday. RMB is a proud sponsor of B20 and a leading African corporate and investment bank. Thanks for joining us on 702 Afternoons. It's 3 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Construction workers trapped under a collapsed wall in Houghton and government ghost workers labelled as organised crime. Good afternoon, I'm Maki Malapo. We begin in the north of Johannesburg, where a wall has collapsed at a construction site in a residential area in Houghton. Details remain sketchy at this stage, but it's believed a number of people are trapped under the rubble. Emergency service teams are currently working to rescue the individuals who are believed to be construction workers. Other workers on site who are visibly shook have refused to speak to members of the media as they wait anxiously watching the teams at work. Rescue operations continue, and we'll have more on this developing story in our upcoming bulletins. Parliament's Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee says the phenomenon of ghost workers is not an administration error but organised crime within government. Chairperson of the committee, Jan de Villiers, believes the issue is so widespread that thousands of ghost workers are currently milking the system to the tune of millions every month after infiltrating the payroll system. De Villiers was addressing a briefing in Parliament today as part of the governance cluster. Babalo Ndenza has more.
The issue of ghost workers has been around for years, with evidence pointing to more than 2,000 suspicious employees in state entities like Rail Agency PRASA back in 2022. Public Service and Administration Committee Chairperson Jan de Villiers says the phenomenon now affects all spheres of government and not just government agencies. He says the current authentication system is open to manipulation.
This, I must stress, is not merely a payroll anomaly. It is a deliberate and orchestrated form of systemic corruption. It is organised crime within the state.
De Villiers says the Portfolio Committee welcomes the joint audit of ghost employees that is currently underway, saying it signals a departure from previous fragmented audits that yielded no results. Babalo Ndenza, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
We move to the courts where a lawyer in the Senzo Meyiwa trial has missed court today after running the Comrades Marathon. Advocate Charles Mnisi wrote a letter informing Judge Rata Mokgwatleng that he would be participating in the race and would need time off. But Judge Mokgwatleng rebuked him for the request, making controversial remarks about black lawyers, which he has since apologized for. Khomotso Modise reports.
Advocate Charles Mnisi was a no-show in court today after he informed the court through a letter that he would be running the Comrades Marathon and he sought leave to do so. Mnisi's request is what prompted the controversial race-based remarks from Judge Rata Mokgwatleng, which he's now apologized for. The state's advocate George Baloyi then brought an application to recall 2 police officers to testify on pictures of Bongani Ndanzi, Moses Bia and Mtobisi Mncube.
We mentioned that these additional photos do not form part of any of the exhibits that are before court, but are contained in the totality of the photos that were downloaded on these gadgets.
It's unclear whether the defense will oppose this application. The court agreed to wait for Mnisi to give an indication tomorrow. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News at the Pretoria High Court.
In KwaZulu-Natal, police are investigating circumstances around a Comrades Marathon runner who was reported missing and later found in the Point Road area. Maria Harding is one of the thousands of runners who participated in the 90-kilometer run from Pietermaritzburg to Durban yesterday. She went missing after being spotted at the finishing line at the Moses Mabhida Stadium last evening. This morning, she was found in the Point area of Durban, just 5 kilometers away from the stadium. ALS Paramedics' Gareth Jameson.
Paramedics, together with SAPS Search and Rescue and Metro Police Search and Rescue, proceeded to the end of Point Road near the NSRR base. On arrival, paramedics found the critically injured runner lying on the side of the jetty. Immediately, advanced life support paramedics worked to stabilize the runner on the scene before a decision was made to bring in the aeromedical helicopter to rapidly transport the patient to a hospital for the urgent care that they required.
He adds it's still unclear how she ended up in the Point area.
The circumstances leading up to the runner ending up at the jetty is unknown. However, SAPS and necessary authorities will be investigating further.
And government is appealing to the families of freedom fighters whose remains were never returned from exile to come forward with any information that may help identify their burial sites. This is part of the Exile Repatriation Program, which aims to bring home the remains of numerous freedom fighters who were buried in exile. The Sport, Arts and Culture Department is now entering the second phase of the program, focusing on Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe and Lesotho. Minister Gayton McKenzie held a media briefing in Pretoria today to provide an update on preparations for the launch of this next phase. Alpha Ramushwana has more.
During the first phase of the Exile Repatriation Program, the remains of Duma Nukwe were among those returned to South Africa last year. Nukwe, who passed away in Zambia in 1978, holds the distinction of being the youngest Secretary General in the history of the ANC. He was reburied in Johannesburg last month, 47 years after he succumbed to health complications. Sport, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie has emphasized that all freedom fighters who died in exile deserve dignified reburials. However, he noted that a major challenge is locating their remains.
We urge former exiles, comrades and families to assist us. If you have names, photos, dates or locations, no matter how small, please come forward.
McKenzie anticipates completing the repatriations by 2029. Alpha Ramushwana, Eyewitness News, Pretoria.
Gold's trading at $3,316.69 an ounce. The rand's at 17.73 to the dollar, at exactly 24 to the pound, at 20.21 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $66.93 a barrel.
On our roads, it's going to be a beautiful Monday, beautiful week. Make that a beautiful week. Just make sure you are kind, drive with care, and do not speed. The speed limit is not a target. We've got an incident in Waverley, Johannesburg, on the M1 North. It's right at Corlett Drive off-ramp. Please expect delays all the way from Houghton. Already starting to see some high traffic volumes on the N3 heading south from Alexander Township, heading towards the Galulis interchange. Budget some extra 10 minutes. Please drive with ease.
In your sport, Banyana's WAFCON squad is trimmed to 28 players, but there's no place for Thembi Kgatlana. Tennis the winner as Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner set Roland Garros' final record. And Irina Sabalenka vows to learn after releasing statement on Coco Gauff comments.
A look at your weather. A cloudy afternoon in Gauteng today with isolated showers expected. Temperatures have peaked at highs between 12 and 15 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. A wall has collapsed at a construction site in a residential area in Houghton in the north of Joburg.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. Some walks are just for exercise, others for leisure. But the 702 Walk the Talk is for something far greater. Enter now on primemediaplus.com.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app, DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is 9 minutes past 3 on Monday, the 9th of June. How was your weekend? How cold are you? Boy, it is freezing in some parts of the country and set to get very, very cold in Gauteng as well. This is 702 Drive with me, John Perlman, wherever you are listening to us in 702 land. Welcome to the show. Justice Relebogile today, as you heard a moment ago, apologized for remarks he made last week critical of black advocates. How was the apology received in the courtroom, though? And what happened after he delivered it? I watched it on TV and had some thoughts of my own, but our EWN colleague, Khumotso Modise, will share her thoughts on that shortly. She is in the courtroom right now. What are your views on the original comments that Justice Mokgwatleng made and the apology he gave today? Get in touch on 072 702 1702 and 011 883 0702. Government has plans to introduce entrepreneurship education in schools. Those are going to be announced later this month. But what kind of content would hit the mark? Can you teach children in school about entrepreneurship? I'm sure you can teach them something. We'll talk after 4 to an educationist who's been looking at this for some time. But we'd love to get your experience as well. I'll chuck out a couple of questions on the subject a little bit later. How long is a second? That was a second, but it does depend on what you have to do in that time. For Brad Nadal, that was how much time he had left to cross the finish line at the Comrades Marathon before the gun. Did he make it? We'll find out at 10 to 4. We've got all that and a whole lot more on 702 Drive, including breaking news, news from the roads in our regular traffic updates, and the latest from the markets. On the markets right now, the All Share is up to start the week, but not by terribly much. It's up by around 85 points. Strong day for platinum stocks. Implat's up by 6.5%. Valterra by 6, Northam and Sibanye by 4. Not so good for retail stocks. They had a little late surge last week, but Pepkor, Foschini and Mr. Price all down today. The rand's trading at 17 Rand 72 against the dollar, nice and strong. A euro will cost you 20 Rand 22. 24 Rand will get you a pound. The oil price is up 31 cents the gain. Brent crude currently trading at $66.87 a barrel. Stephen Curtis joining us at 27 minutes past 4 with all the market news. Tolakele Mganga has all the sport, as you heard a moment ago. Maki Molapo coming back at 3:30 with the latest news headlines. And Mvangeli Nzuza is keeping an eye on the roads. This is 702 Drive. We're live in the place where you live, and if it's happening in 702 land, you will hear about it here first. We need your help wherever you can give it to us. Contact us on 072 702 1702 or 011 883 0702. I'd love to hear from you. I mean, it's cold in Johannesburg, as I said. It's going to get a lot colder across Gauteng, and this cold front is going to move pretty much across the country. But if you are, for example, down in the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape, I see that Beaufort West, for example, is going to be freezing, and people driving back from the Comrades Marathon or just commuting for other reasons between the KZN coast through the Midlands and up to Gauteng, well, it's going to be cold and wet there as well. Tricky driving conditions. So if you've got an update for us, do give us a call on that on 011 883 0702. It's 12 minutes past 3.
702. Let's walk the talk.
Over this weekend, I actually put to use something I bought ages ago and then never actually used. I cycle every weekend, as I might have mentioned before. Half the time I spend off-road. But when I'm on the roads, I've seen other riders that have these little flashing lights at the back, which is just to increase your visibility. And there's a little thing at the front that you can do that looks like a torch. So just make yourself as visible to motorists as you can, certainly in terms of the bicycle itself. And then about 4 weeks ago, I thought to myself, I must buy one of those. And then I thought, no, I actually did buy one of those. So that's an example of buying something and eventually putting it to use. Obviously, things like that don't go stale. And unlike certain kinds of red wine, they don't improve. They just kind of stay as they are for the rest of your life. And then I put it on, and I quite like the idea that I've done it and put something to use. But a lot of people have stuff that they buy and somehow never quite get around to putting them to the use for which they were bought or the intention that they imagined. So if you've bought something and never used it, I no longer fit that category because my light is flashing as we speak or available to flash. Give us a call. I bet there's a story behind that. The number to use is 072 702 1702 and 011 883 0702. It's 14 minutes past 3.
You're with John Perlman on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Jonathan Fairbairn, Kabazela, good afternoon to you. What's in your cupboard sitting in a box not yet used? Take us to the relevant part of your home.
Afternoon, John, and afternoon to the 702 family. So I bought a pair of golf shoes a long time ago, and the reason I bought them a long time ago was because there was a deal on them, and my current pair of shoes were looking maybe a little bit worse for wear, but still had a few kilometers in them. So I bought the shoes and then had the intention of maybe wearing them, and then I didn't. I was like, let me wear these golf shoes that I have now until they're really finished. And then the shoes that I am wearing are kind of now on their last legs. The spikes on the bottom are worn out, and I've got this beautiful brand new pair of shoes in my cupboard. So I haven't worn those, and the reason I haven't worn those is because about 2 months or so ago, our golf school, that's the guys that we regularly play with on a Saturday, have come up with this daft rule, which, there was a vote on and many voted in favor. I don't know why. They must have rocks for brains, but they voted for it. So the rule is that if you come to the golf course wearing a new pair of shoes, golf shoes, at the end of that first round, you have to take a black label and pour it in the shoe and drink out of the shoe. I refuse to do this. I don't want to drink a black label Zamalek out of my expensive
or any
golf
beer.
shoes.
It's not the black label. It's the concept.
Yeah, it's definitely not the beer.
Okay.
I'm happy to drink the black label. But it's you've spent money on the shoe. Now you must go and drink the beer out of it. And they are like, oh, no, it's fine. These shoes are designed to keep, to be dry and all this kind of stuff. So I'm in this predicament where I'm refusing to do that. So I have these lovely shoes that are sitting in the cupboard gathering dust.
Okay. Well, a beer would deal with the dust, but okay. So there's a pair of. Do you have any idea, by the way, how you're going to resolve this?
Well, I don't know. I either have to drink the beer. I'm trying to think of ways that I can safely drink the beer without damaging the shoe. Because One Oak did.
Yeah.
He did. And he says it shrunk. The left foot is a little bit tighter on his foot now.
I suppose if he soaked his foot in beer, that might make... No, okay. Well, you've got a genuine dilemma there because these are your mates. You're part of the school. It's a deal. You've all agreed on
Yes.
it. But so the shoes get older. Fortunately, your feet, I think it's fair to assume, are not growing. Vangeli, good afternoon to you. Have you got anything in the cupboards, anything somewhere in the house, in the flat that you bought and you just aren't able to put it to use?
Yeah, very good afternoon, John, to our listeners and the team in studio. I've got a ski mask. So I was supposed to go to Lesotho sometime last year and we're supposed to go skiing. And it just never happened, never materialized because of other things that we had. But it's been so cold. I'm thinking, can I wear a ski mask
This
in Gauteng? This week particularly, But it's there, and I was just looking forward to the skiing in almost at the Alps in Lesotho, but in the mountains of Lesotho. And I just have this thing now that I know will work well in the snow, but will I be too much if I do it in the Gauteng or South African winter? I don't know, but I still have not used it.
No, use it. Come.
Yeah.
Come. Wear it to work.
No beer rules there with new ski masks or anything with your friends.
Yes.
You're safe.
Yeah, I'm safe. Thank you.
Yeah. You have to eat an ice cream. How about that? Something nice and appropriate and rather sweet. Or no, maybe like frozen vodka shots or something. Anyway, we will see. What have you got in your cupboards? Please, people, call us 011 883 0702 and 072 702 1702. We'd like to hear from you. What have you bought and never used? And crucially, tell us why. 18 minutes past 3. Let's catch up with the traffic.
Thank you so much. We start in Centurion. Roy Hayescrawl, we've got an incident on the old Johannesburg Road. It's northbound at Eidsig Road. That's at Nelmapius Drive, so please expect delays. The backup queue is at the N1 carriageway. Germiston Ekurhuleni, collision on the N3 North before Geluli's interchange. It's causing mild pressure from the Geldenhuys interchange. It's then Pomona Ekurhuleni queuing. This is the R21 northbound from Atlas Road all the way to Pomona Road. This will be made worse by the roadworks, long-term roadworks, just after Pomona as you head towards Kempton Park, in fact, heading towards Tembisa. City of Johannesburg, Waverley collision on the M1 North at Corlett Drive, still causing delays from Houghton, and in Alexander Township, queuing traffic on the N3 South from Mulberry Drive to Vincent Chabalala Road, formerly known as London Road. Please expect delays. I'll have your next traffic update in 16 minutes or as it happens.
John Perlman
On 702.
3 to 6 p.m.
702, right, let's get ourselves out to the Senzo Mayiwa murder trial. Now, last week, the presiding judge, Rata Mokgwatleng, was reflecting to the court on a request he'd received from one of the advocates who are representing the accused men. Advocate Charles Mnisi had sent through notification. I don't know if it was a request waiting for an answer or if it was notification merely as in I am letting you know. But he was going to be running the Comrades Marathon and said he would be traveling on Monday on his way back. Judge Rata Mokgwatleng had quite a lengthy response, part of which was this.
I must go and tell the JP. When the JP asked me, why were you not sitting, or the DJP, why were you not sitting on Monday? No, we're waiting for Advocate Nisi to come drive back to Joburg, to wherever, because he was running a marathon. This is South Africa, run by blacks. I can tell you now, even if you call me an Uncle Tom, I don't think a white advocate can have the gall to ask me that. Never.
So that was just Judge Rata Mokgwatleng last week. Today, he gave a lengthy and very fulsome apology, apologizing to virtually everybody, people who were offended in political parties, other people practicing the law. He apologized to the Gauteng Judge President, Dunstan Mlambo, and to his deputy. He apologized to the Chief Justice, Mandisa Maya. He apologized to everybody in the court. It was, as I say, quite extensive. Khomotso Modisa, our EWN reporter, was in the court, and I'm keen to know, good afternoon to Khomotso, because we're getting lots of reaction from outside of that community, because I think it's fair to call it that, of people who are involved in that trial. But how did they respond? Do you think that's a deal done, everything settled, or are there still some undercurrents that might resurface again.